For the purpose of FMS operations, Jeppesen will take a normal approach chart and identify up to 3 segments: the transition, the approach, and the missed approach. The transition segment is the maneuvering segment. It allows the FMS to navigate the aircraft through a series of legs or procedures to align the aircraft with the final approach. The transition segment may be edited as necessary, and the remainder will be unaffected. There are many types of transitions: no procedure turns, teardrops, holding patterns in lieu of procedure turns, and arcs. The transition segment of the approach can be edited. This is the transition segment for Tucson. The Dingo transition will take you down to Calls intersection. Calls is the end of the transition segment and the beginning of the approach segment. Coming in from Sand, you will be coming in from a different direction, but you will still terminate at Calls intersection. If you are not conveniently aligned, you can choose the Tucson transition, which takes you into Ellipti for the course reversal and then back to Calls. The approach segment is the portion of the approach that takes the aircraft to the runway. It is identified as the waypoints between the approach label and the end of approach label. A final approach fix is required for all FMS approaches. Where the approach design does not call for one, Jeppesen will add one in accordance with ARINC 424 guidance. A missed approach point is required and is normally identified by the prefix RW or MA, which are ARINC 424 recommended names for this point. RW is defined as being co-located with the runway threshold, and MA is a missed approach point not at the runway threshold. Although these identifiers are used a great deal, they are not required, and other names may be used to identify the missed approach point. The approach segment must not be edited or it will void the approach. An edited approach, including approach label and EOA, will violate the integrity of the approach segment, and these waypoints can no longer be flown as an FMS approach. TSO C-146 requires the FMS to initiate approach active no later than 2 nautical miles prior to the final approach fix. Think of this as a buffer zone. It gives the FMS time to change the CDI scale, generate the glide slope, and change analog autopilots from roll steering to deviation steering if required. When possible, Jeppesen will use a waypoint in the approach to initiate approach activation. This is usually the final approach capture fix, as long as it is at least 2 nautical miles from the final approach course fix. If there is no waypoint available, the FMS will initiate approach active 2 nautical miles prior to the final approach fix. A capture fix waypoint may be the same waypoint as the last waypoint in the approach transition, and therefore will be listed twice in the flight plan. Do not delete either one of these waypoints. Approaches follow a fairly standard structure in the FMS. Approach waypoints are protected. Do not modify anything in the approach segment, or the FMS will void the approach. If you violate this rule, the only way to repair it is to go back into the flight plan and re-enter the approach. Here we have the approach segment for the RNAV approach into Tucson 11 left, the approach label, and the end of approach label. Following the approach label, the capture fix begins the approach, followed by the final approach fix. And here is the missed approach point, which ends the approach. Notice the asterisk after RW11L. This is an overfly point. Pressing the missed approach line select key, which becomes available after crossing the final approach fix, will present the missed approach routing following the missed approach point. For those aircraft so capable, pressing the Go Around button while the missed approach option is presented will also present the missed approach routing. The FMS has a nav approach page, which can only be seen when the approach is active. The FMS has crossed the final approach fix, now giving us a missed approach line select key. If I decide to go around, I must get past this end of approach gap. One of the functions of the missed approach line select key is to remove the approach gap. Without the EOA, the FMS crosses the missed approach point and enters the first leg of the missed approach instructions. The EOA is not gone from the flight plan. Notice this leg. It is designed by ARINC 424 and entered by Jeppesen to keep the aircraft going down runway centerline while you climb to a safe altitude. Here is a quick summary of the approach segments.